Okay, we're now going to talk about the termination, in quotes, of the Mutual Defense Treaty. We are, in fact, in actual fact, reviewing the proposal to review the Mutual Defense Treaty. And your colleague in the Manila Standard, Charlie Manalo, wrote this column recently. Time to terminate, he says. This is a good opportunity for President Duterte. Let's show Charlie Manalo's there now. He starts with recalling the Balangiga bells are back, returned after 117 years in the hands of imperialist and colonialist America, and so on and so forth. Now it's time to complete the sovereignty by terminating the Mutual Defense Treaty. Now, I raised earlier in our first half discussion that to terminate it formally would be like contradicting the position that it has been invalidated by the 1987 Constitution against foreign forces in the country. It's like accepting the BFA decision of the Supreme Court, which is weird because that was already banned by the
decision
Constitution.
Of the people, it was the Constitution.
Ratified by the people in a special plebiscite.
Correct.
So, what is the legal action here now? To terminate would imply recognition, or?
First, I would like to clarify this. The 1965 Marcos-Johnson communique, September 1964 yata, 64 or 65, in Washington, agreed that military bases in the Philippines will terminate after 25 years. And that 25 years was in 1991. 1991, remember
91.
that?
No, 1991.
So, when Salonga was then the Senate President, I questioned that. Because Salonga was bragging. He said, under my leadership in the Senate, we terminated the military bases agreement. Sabi ko, mali ka dun. It's wrong. What you did, what you decided in the Senate was the resolution filed by pro-American senators to extend the military bases. Kahit hindi ka naging senador, the military bases will terminate by 1991 whether you like it or not. Yan ang clarify natin. What the Salonga group did was to reject the extension. The extension. That should be the proper term. And many hanggang ngayon, nakakaloko yan eh. Akala niya siya pa rin ang bida eh. Hindi totoo yun. Ngayon, let me add this, when we ratified the 1987 Constitution, it provided no military bases. And when the Filipino people ratified that, the Supreme Court has no stupid business in deciding whether to allow the bases to stay in the Philippines because it is clear. Di ba gago?
That's right.
Pardon my language.
Yeah. Well, the argument in the Supreme Court defending the VFA was that it is not a base and it is just visiting forces. But I think it's very clear in the constitutional provision that all forces are not allowed in the country.
Para ganon, sinasabi nila, we have our women there inside that room, you can visit them. And then before you leave, you have to give us $50, something like that. Ganon ba, prostitute? No, actually, hindi. Because that was repeated again when they approved EDCA. Di ba? Hindi ko makuha.
So, over and above the semantics, this really is a violation of the constitutional provision.
The President Duterte should not listen to suggestions from some quarters to extend the bases, to upgrade. I'm not
to review. There's a review, there's
upgrade.
The upgrade, yeah.
Because when you upgrade, that will include Spratly.
That's right. Which we sort of agree that it's not even possible because the Americans won't even accept it.
Yeah, supposedly. But because of oil, because they have a different, they have an interest now to protect, na gusto nilang i-pursue pala. Now they want it upgraded. Before that, they're interested. Because when we were in trouble, I remember with Malaysia, and even a few years ago, Hillary Clinton was quoted saying, we will not allow our forces to join in any trouble between the Philippines and China.
Over territory.
In these Spratly Islands. It's very clear. So, The intention now is different. So, best the President Duterte can do is to not to allow this suggestion
Well,
because
the president doesn't have to review. He can just terminate.
yeah, terminate that.
He can just end it. Yeah.
Correct. Kasi di makikita mo ibang interest dyan, it has nothing to do with our defense. It has nothing to do with that. Walang kinalalaman yun. I am more inclined to believe intended to sabotage the memorandum of understanding.
Yeah. Well, the president, President Duterte, has done almost everything to show that he rejects continued American presence in the military forces in the Philippines. He has demanded the return of the Balangiga bells. He has said just this past few days that the Philippines will not buy military hardware anymore from the United States of America, but everything is short of kicking out the Americans from the bases they have with EDCA.
Oh, by the way, before I forget, should we decide to include those islands in our mutual defense treaty with the United States, how will Vietnam react? What about Malaysia?
Because Vietnam is claiming some
Taiwan,
of these islands.
yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Will they not react? O bakit mo sasama yan?
Yeah.
The same question.
Yeah.
It's not only China, but we will be creating problems to ourselves.
Well, that
so
is
many
why,
enemies.
That's why that that reinforces the doubt that the United States will even accept the idea. Because you just added more complications that the Americans will look at and say, this is a ridiculous proposal.
Yeah. I don't understand. By all of a sudden, barely 2 weeks after we signed that agreement, when everybody was expecting that, after that, to come out with the detail, how they call that, implementing rules, about that agreement, here comes Secretary of Defense suggesting for a review. I don't think...
But maybe it was a review. Of course, he said that on his own initiative, not even President Duterte's instruction. So, and he did say that it may be scrapped because the Cold War is over. There is no reason for it. So that's also a possibility that a review, although as we said earlier, a review is not even necessary anymore because the president can just scrap it. And
Yes.
what do you think? As I was saying, the President Duterte, has done everything. Lahat ginawa na niya, except remove the bases. What's he waiting for?
Your question is as good as mine. Hindi ko alam.
Oh, how do we? Is it now opportune, as Charlie Manalo says? This is a good opportunity for President Duterte now that his own defense secretary has raised the possibility of reviewing it. And
the Philippine position then was something of ambivalent because they do not want to easily kick out the Americans because of the economic implications. For instance, Subic and Clark, pro-American supporters of these bases were saying, you cannot do that. What about our workers? Will be terminated. These are the main arguments. What about the properties, the investments? These are questions that were raised during that time. Now, wala na mga workers doon eh. Ang investors ngayon sa Subic at saka sa Clark, hindi na mga Amerikano, wala na nga sila ron. No, ano pa ano pang arguments na yan?
So it's much easier to do now to kick this American bases out, and not only because there is no economic entanglement anymore for the Philippines, but more because also the Philippines is reportedly subsidizing the Americans in terms of electricity consumption and so on.
Mabuti na banggit mo yan. Because the traditional military agreements we signed with the United States, that the United States will have to provide the infrastructures for the bases, like the training, the camp itself, the quarters for the soldiers, the radars, and the runway for the airplanes, all these things were constructed by American forces. Now, nakikisingit sila dahil wala lang silang pera. They use our own facilities. Nakakahiya, pinapalis ang sundalo natin kasi gagamitin nila kasi wala na nga silang pera. Hindi nga sila nagbabayad ng tubig, hindi sila nagbabayad ng ilaw. Hindi katulad ng panahon, I remember during the time of Marcos, kaya napipi kung sa kanya Amerikano, siningil siya hanggang kahuli lang, pati sa tax, pagpapasok ng mga goods nila rito, pati sa pasweldo sa mga manggagawa, tubig, kuryente, siningil sila lahat yan, literally. Ngayon, libre lahat ang ginawa nito.
I think Marcos's intention there was to convey the message to the world that the Philippines is not relying for its defense with the Americans, but the Americans are renting and paying their way.
The main argument ang argumento ng Amerikano, we will not pay rent. Kasi nga,
we are helping the country.
Oh, yes. Ang argument nila, sabi ng Amerikano, ang sabi naman ni Marcos, no, we have to pay. Kasi pag nagbayad kayo, ang ibig sabihin yan, amin yan, sovereignty namin yan. Yun lang naman yun eh. Hindi sila magkasundo doon. So nag-claim silang, binago nila, they use economic assistance agreement in lieu of rent. Yun eh.
And that was when some would say the Americans started plotting against Marcos.
Precisely.
To bring him down.
Ito, nilibre na lahat ito, pati tubig, pati kuryente, libre. Hindi ba tayo nahiya? Ang mga kampo, pinaalis sila dahil titira sila ron.
Well, Jose Custodio, the amboy here, says that one of the complaints of the Filipino side is that the Americans use better facilities than the Filipinos inside the Filipino bases and so on. Well, of course, the Americans say they have constructed their own quarters, which is better condition than our quarters, of course. But I think the utilities, electricity, water, and so on, the Americans are not paying for. But it's the Philippine side paying for it.
Wala silang of the, I think, 5 or 6 military bases site at the EDCA. Wala rong new facilities constructed by the United States Armed Forces. Diyan na lang sa Agampaginaldo, diyan sila nakatira. Meron sila isang lugar diyan. Sa kanila lang yun eh. Saan nila kinuha yun? Sa atin yun eh.
That's right.
Yeah. Sa airbase dun sa Buen. Sa Basa Airbase, kanila yun eh.
Yeah.
Atin yun eh.
But more over and above these things is that I think it's very clear that the Americans are not here to protect the Philippines.
Precisely.
But it is also an endangerment of the Philippines to have bases like this in the country, in the Philippines. By the way, let me also mention, I noted this in the discussion of Russia and Japan for a new peace treaty, finally. I discovered upon reading all these reports that the only reason why Japan and Russia has never signed a peace treaty is because of Russia's objection to the mutual defense agreement of Japan and the United States. So it still presents a dilemma for the peace treaty being proposed between Russia and Japan today and the return of the Japanese islands, Sakhalin, to Japan. So this highlights the point that these military alliances are an obstruction to peace among nations in our region.
Now, mabuti na banggit mo yan. Let me clarify this. The United States is just about to withdraw from the International INF Treaty.
INF,
Intermediate
Nuclear Forces.
Forces. Alam mo, ang implication yan, to be clear, pag na-implement ang under the treaty, there will be what we call the free zone, the so-called free zone. So, you cannot put up, install nuclear military bases with nuclear weapons somewhere in the Philippines, close to China. You have to put up your bases in the United States going to China. Pero hindi mo pwede lagay sa nuclear, sa isang lugar na yan. Kasi ang range niya something like less than 1,000 kilometers or 500 yata. I don't know. That's why Russia is objecting to the installation of these nuclear missiles in Japan, South Korea, Lithuania, and in Poland. These are violations of the INF. Now that the United States intends to withdraw from this treaty, nothing will prevent them to install these nuclear intermediate range ballistic missiles in the Philippines.
That's right. Yeah.
It will be in violation of our Constitution. Yan ang danger dyan eh. Yan ang binabalak ng
And
Amerikano.
the worst part of it is that it becomes a magnet for
Yes.
retaliation
Precisely.
by any enemy of the United States, which may not be an enemy of the Philippines, but we will be dragged into a thankless situation like that.
Yes.
Okay, so, well, I do hope we can all try to convince President Duterte, as Charlie Manalo has written, that it is time and opportunity to terminate. What do you think we can do to bring this to President Duterte's attention? We are discussing it, of course. I hope it reaches his ear.
Actually,
What do you think is Teddy Boy Locsin's position in all this? Well, should he have a position, or should he just wait for the President's decision on the matter?
he should wait for the president first to issue that statement. But actually, President Duterte can merely issue a memorandum of agreement, an order, I should
Executive
say,
order.
executive order for the removal of the bases. There is no term there. Wala naman sinasabi na after 5 years, 10 years, something like wala naman ganun. Issue niya, tapos yan.
And the Mutual Defense Treaty, it says there that it can be terminated upon 1 year's notice. It doesn't have to be...
Wala na yan eh.
It's not necessary. Even an order is not necessary because the 1987 Constitution nullifies it.
Yun nga, kaya nga nagkaroon, and let me repeat this, kaya nga nagkaroon tayo ng question, many people, even lawyers, began to question that. Because, bakit pa niratify ng Constitution? O ng Supreme Court pala, declare na Constitution, when supposedly, the decision of the referendum, of the people in that referendum, approving, ratifying that 1970 Constitution is supposed to be superior. Superior yun, dahil nandun ang provision yan eh. Ba't nagkaganon?
Well, also, I think we should factor in the developments in the region. Not only is China engaged in strategically engaged with the Philippines, therefore it cannot be an enemy. All the crisis hotspots in the region is being resolved. North and South Korea are talking and establishing rail
Oh, by the way,
links and so on.
good. Let me clarify this. China is not even demanding from the Philippines for us to remove the military bases.
Precisely. We do not hear.
They're not saying anything.
They're not saying anything.
Perhaps they will only raise that question if we include the disputed islands.
Definitely.
That will be the problem. But as far as now, sabi namin, bahala kayo, it's your problem. It's not my problem. You decided in your constitution not to have military base, and now you declare that through your Supreme Court constitutional and valid. What's that? Hindi sila kumikibo dyan eh. Pero magkakaproblema tayo. At ang pinakamasaklap dyan, sapul ang oil natin, ang joint venture agreement natin dyan. At ang economic natin na masasapul dyan. Yun ang importante. Yun ang pinaka-problema, hindi nakikita ng karamihan natin.
Okay. Well, so I think we have completely exhausted the possible issues left in this discussion. It is time for the President to terminate these bases, and it is time to already consider the MDT null and void. You have any final conclusion?
Well, actually, ang ano ko lang, my final word is that we should not do something that will jeopardize the memorandum of understanding.
With China, you mean?
With China.
With China.
It's importante yan eh. Kasi many of us, I'm not after these big oil companies. I'm more interested on our share through PNOC, Philippine National Oil Company.
Share of the government, the state.
Share ng gobyerno natin. Kasi marami makikinabang yan. Magkanong tinaas ng langis ngayon. We need that. Ang China, wala naman mawawala eh. Kung ngayon, wala tayong magagawa. Kami magagawa tayo. Let's not do that. Let's accept na natin na gano'n ang agreement. Pabor na nga sa atin yan, 60% atin. Sila pa mamumuhunan. Ano ba problema mo? I mean, hirap na magsalita dyan eh.
Yes. Well, with that final word from columnist Rod Kapunan of the Manila Standard and one of our leading thinkers on these geopolitical issues and foreign relations, we end this discussion, and I think we have been able to help clarify a lot of the issues. And it's time to call for the President to end this charade of the Mutual Defense Treaty once and for all, and remove all foreign military forces from the country. Thank you very much, and have a good weekend. Thank you, Rod. So.